All right, greetings. Welcome back to Black Bear News, where everything is connected. How y'all feeling? Good to see you. We're live on YouTube, Rockfin and Colin. I'm trying a little something different with Colin today, um, because I was made aware that there's a lot of noise on the Colin show, like hiss noise, mic noise, I guess. So I'm trying to do something different. The problem is that I don't know if where I have Colin is on my phone, so where I have my phone sitting, I don't know if I can actually. You'll be able to hear the clips I'm playing. Anyways, this is all inside baseball kind of stuff. But what I'm trying to say is, I hope the sound is better on Colin overall, but I hope you'll be able to hear the things I am playing during the show. And I don't know. There might be a trade off there if y'all get what I'm trying to say. But hello to you people. Yes, I have electricity today. I know the last couple days have been a little weird as far as getting the show to go on time. Anyways, welcome. The show is called Clown Juice. That's what people drink in Clown World. And that's actually an AI picture. AI generated picture of clown juice. There were several. The other ones were more frightening. This one was a little bit. It was just more funny and childlike. The other ones were a little like more scary clown. Andre, you were having a windstorm. That's not good. What's up, Rockfinners? I think everybody's kind of piling in here a little slow. Everybody expects me to be late right now today. Don't. I'm going to keep you on your toes. I'm going to start on time today. So there. All right, let's talk about stuff. I want to try and talk about a lot of things that I didn't get a chance to talk about yesterday. And those are going to be things on the more weird or alternative news spectrum. Alternative news meaning actual like true stories as opposed to false stories, or maybe a little weirder. The darker side of stories as opposed to the narrative propaganda side of the stories that they all want everybody to understand and agree with, right? So, just so we're clear. But the clown world and clown juice is a little scary. Clown world is a little scary. I might have could have put the scary clowns up for my thumbnail today. But let's start with this from the professor. And what is he talking about? There's growing and disturbing trend among some climate scientists and climate journalists to write calming articles suggesting that perhaps things won't be so bad. Right? Don't worry, guys. We got time. We're on the right track. Everything's fine. This is from today. As the Earth hurdles ahead towards a hotter global climate with over 2 degrees or more of higher temperatures by 2100. 2100. Remember that? It's still kicking, right? By 2100, things will be very different. Nobody wants to write it, It's funny because I think this person is trying to lampoon the "it's not so bad" crowd, but using timelines like 2100, because nobody ever wants to go by 2030. The climate can be completely wrecked. Like nobody wants to write an article like that because it's just too frightening. Right? By 2045 or 2035 or 2040, we will be living in an inhospitable hellscape. Nobody wants to write an article like that. No, still, by 2100, things are going to be a little bit crazy. Oh, great. Still got 80 years left. Right? So it's funny because this person, I think, is doing a little bit of the two-step. Hold on. Somebody says, FZAP, do you read any climate science and primary sources? No, I never do, FZAP. Never. I just repeat things that people tell me. I think that's where you're going with this, right? I don't know. I mean, that's a fine question, FZAP. That's fine to ask that question. But I urge you to actually just listen to the show for a while if you're going to try to pick apart what I'm saying based on like what you assume about what it is I know about climate science. So I suggest that you just hang out. Just chill. Welcome to the show. Just chill. As the Earth hurtles ahead towards a hotter global climate with over 2 degrees, blah, blah, blah. Only to be followed by even more global heating as vast quantities of subterranean and subsea methane frozen in clathrates. This information that I'm reading, actually, FZAP, I'm just going to hint you into this. It's based on climate science. So so listen to what I'm saying. If you want to actually understand a little bit of climate science, go ahead and listen to what I'm saying. Only to be followed by even more global heating as vast quantities of subterranean and subsea methane frozen in clathrates inexorably thaw and are released into the atmosphere. There is a growing and disturbing trend among some climate scientists and climate journalists to write calming articles suggesting that perhaps things won't be so bad. The more recent of these include an article in the New York Times. He's saying, hey, this is what the New York Times is trying to tell you about climate change by Davis Wallace Wells, suggesting that while it is unlikely the nations of the world will succeed in holding down carbon emissions to an extent that a threshold of 1.5 degrees Celsius of higher global temperatures won't be crossed, perhaps those partial efforts will at least slow the process and keep the global temperature from rising past 2.0 degrees. Wow, David Wallace Wells. So FZAP doesn't understand climate science, is trying to ask me whether I understand climate science, and is so annoyed at hearing climate science that he had to leave. He doesn't want to listen anymore. Oh, don't give me the sun. This is how people act. This is how climate deniers act. You wanted to talk about climate science, and you start actually talking about climate. Oh, don't talk to me about climate. Oh, don't give me this information. It's disturbing my already preconceived notion about what I think that you should understand about climate sciences. You understand what I'm saying. Anyways. I'm just saying, on all spectrums of political understanding or non-understanding, our levels of understanding of the thing that it is that you think you know about, right? But the things that you have preconceived notions, called, bias, a bias towards a certain point. If somebody brings you information countering that, no. No, I cannot listen to it. I cannot even try to comprehend it and understand it. I can't fit it in. Anyways, whatever. Proving that humans are, fallible. Humans aren't perfect. Humans oftentimes have a limited range of understanding of things because emotions are involved. And so can completely understand, everything about one particular subject and actually be quite expert at it. And then, hand them another subject that they don't want to understand. And they just, whatever. It's their understanding goes in the gutter. And this is, there's a lot of humans. A lot of humans behave like this. It's okay. It's okay. Welcome to the human race. We're imperfect creatures. But, God help you if you think something that I don't agree with. You might actually be a little less than human if you actually think something that I don't agree with. You know what I'm saying? You might be just, somebody I could just negate. All right, whatever. Anyways, David Wallace Wells is trying to tell you that we could keep things under 2 degrees by the end of the century. That is absolute nonsense. David Wallace Wells, your credibility is in the trash. So good luck to you, sir. No. I mean, whatever. He understands a lot about climate science, but it's just writing stuff like this. Is this on is this have the people gotten to him and said you can't say this stuff out loud, or is he afraid that if he scares people too much, is he trying to play respectability politics? Oh my God, you don't want to be called a nutter. You don't want to be called a doomer. You don't want to be labeled, lumped in with the crazy crowd, the sandwich boarders, the end-is-niers. You don't want to be one of those people. You want to be like calm, cool, and rational. Yeah, I think we can totally stay under 2 degrees. Yeah, by the end of the century. I hope that he's right. I actually really want him to be right. I hope that David Wallace Wells is totally right. For decades, visions of possible climate futures have been anchored by, on the one hand, Pollyanna-like faith that normality would endure, and on the other, millenarian intuitions of an ecological end of days, during which perhaps billions of lives would be devastated or destroyed. More recently, these two stories have been mapped onto climate modeling. Conventional wisdom has dictated that meeting the most ambitious goals of the Paris Agreement by limiting warming to 1.5 degrees could allow for some continuing normal, but failing to take rapid action on emissions and allowing warming above 3 or 4, even 4 degrees spelled doom. Neither of these futures looks all that likely now, with the most terrifying predictions made improbable by decarbonization and the most hopeful ones practically foreclosed by tragic delay. This is him, right? This is what David Wallace Wells is writing. The window of possible climate futures is narrowing, and as a result, we are getting a clearer sense of what's to come. Or this is what he was... this is an earlier thing that David Wallace... Sorry, if you guys didn't understand this. I think I read it, but this is an earlier article saying that the window is closing, of course. We hear this all the time. The window is closing. The window of possible climate futures is narrowing, and as a result, we are getting a clearer sense of what's to come. A new world full of disruption, but also billions of people well past climate normal, and yet mercifully short of true climate apocalypse. Oddly, the same day his article appeared in the paper, there was another article reporting on a warning by the UN Secretary General's office that without much stronger action by the nations of the world, especially the major industrial nations, nearly all of which have been falling well short on their carbon reduction pledges, global temperatures could reach as much as 3 degrees Celsius above 1990 levels, a catastrophe for the environment, for human populations in poor countries, and the world as a whole. As Jim Skia, co-chair of International Panel on Climate Change, Working Group 3, which released the latest report, warning of the consequences of high and dangerously rising methane levels in the atmosphere, put it, it's now or never. If we want to limit global warming to 1.5 degrees, by the way, that's done. 1.5 degrees is not, there's no way we're staying under that, and no way we're staying under 2 at this point. Without immediate and deep emissions reductions all across sectors, it would be impossible. Anyways. Meanwhile, another article published earlier in Climate Change Dispatch on February 16th reported on a University of Colorado study saying the world is unlikely to reach the worst-case scenario of climate change by the end of the century, according to a new study that found efforts to reduce emissions are helping keep warming under control. The Paris Climate Agreement goal to limit global warming this century to 3.6 degrees Fahrenheit over pre-industrial temperatures was set in December 2015. This urged nations to take action to reduce emissions of greenhouse gases in order to forestall the most extreme climate change scenarios being predicted by scientists at the time that could see temperatures rise by up to 9 degrees Fahrenheit. However, a new study by the University of Colorado Boulder, which looked at the latest data on emissions levels, found those extreme temperatures that would have led to a sharp rise in extreme weather events and sea rise are no longer plausible, The researchers found that the extreme scenarios and temperature increase predictions were based on outdated data from 15 years ago that didn't take into account recent efforts to reduce emissions and to move to renewable energy. They said that temperatures are likely to rise by no more than 4 degrees Fahrenheit by 2100, and the 3.6 Fahrenheit goal is still within reach if emission reduction continues. I believe this kind of reporting and even research is a dangerous trend, perhaps motivated by well-intentioned experts and journalists trying to prevent a situation where the public will just throw up its collective hands and say, if we're doomed, why harm ourselves in the time we have left by making life harder? Banning air conditioning, cutting water use, getting rid of cheap and efficient gas engines in favor of expensive electric cars or inconvenient mass transit. Or alternatively, I think that's how you say it, motivated by the commercial interests, energy companies, arms makers, etc., that fund many studies and that only care about making money while they can and not really caring if they are contributing to disaster over the longer term. Left out of such semi-rosy or comfort-inducing reports is the still largely ignored threat of ever-increasing methane releases, not just from exposed permafrost regions in Siberia and the northern regions of Alaska and Canada and under the shallow Arctic Ocean, but increasing exposure of ever larger ice-free areas around the edge of Greenland, and the exposure of shallow waters around Antarctica. Methane, a greenhouse gas 80 or more times potent as potent molecule for molecule as CO2, molecules will increasingly wreak havoc with efforts to limit greenhouse gas in the atmosphere. Nor are the impacts of such things as a slowing or even collapse of the Gulf Stream, expansion of desertification, loss of rainforest like in the Amazon region, and a limit to how many cars can actually be operated with lithium batteries. Global warming deniers are going extinct, thank heavens, but they are being replaced by supposed realists who are saying essentially, calm down, folks. Climate deniers are going extinct? Okay. I mean, there are some issues with this article. I don't know about that one. I feel like there's actually more than ever. Why? Because when faced with a harsh reality, a lot of people will tend to ignore that harsh reality or really do their very best to act like nothing's happening. I think that's called a stage of grief. Governments and businesses and the public are getting a handle on this problem. This is what some people are saying. Calm down. Maybe we'll have to deal with 2 or 2.5 degrees of increased global temperature by 2100, but we can handle that. My own observations suggest that we aren't and we can't. Well, yeah, if you're actually alive today and you're paying attention and you can see what kind of crazy, insane stuff is going on with the weather right now, and supposedly we're only at 1.2. So you think that 2 degrees or 2.5 is going to be, yeah, we're going to manage that, okay. Sure. Check out the photo of my house taken on November 1st, a day after Halloween in southeastern Pennsylvania, about 10 miles north of Philadelphia. And notice all the green leaves on the huge oak tree behind it, right? Just 20 to 25 years ago when we moved here and I had little kids of trick-or-treating age, I remember there were no deciduous trees still with their leaves attached on November 1st, right? Even in fall colors, much less green, when they'd go out trick-or-treating. Often their costumes had to be hidden beneath winter coats because at night it would be well below freezing by October 31st. This Halloween, the temperature was over 60 degrees Fahrenheit. My tomatoes are still growing red on the vines, which still have their green leaves because we haven't yet had even a minor frost, and none is predicted for here until at least November 14th. I just saw a friend of mine post on Facebook. who lives in Chicago posting trick or treat pictures saying, "Enjoy it, kid. It's 70 degrees outside." Right. 70 degrees in Chicago on October 31st. 70 degrees. No, sir. We are going into an ice age. That's absolutely what that, I mean, because if it's 70 degrees in Chicago on October 31st or 60 degrees in Pennsylvania, surely we are going into an ice age. If your tomatoes are still growing on November 1st, no, nothing to see here. I have also 2 thriving palm trees that I planted on the south side of my house 4 or 5 years ago, correctly anticipating a coming climate here that would resemble what we were seeing in southeastern Virginia a decade or 2 ago, and where people already had tall palmetto-type palms growing outside their homes. This particular windmill palm has tripled in height over the last 4 years, handily surviving the mild winters we've had. Another palm planted 5 years ago, but further away from the house and not protected as this one is, to both the north and east, has not grown as much, but is still a thriving palm tree, if considerably less tall and with smaller fronds. Nor do these climate Pollyannas discuss the disaster even 2 degrees Celsius and rising global climate means for most of local flora and fauna. We're about to see the end of the emperor penguin in Antarctica because of melting ice sheets and shrinking food sources. And more locally, of the monarch butterfly. I only saw one this year visiting the milkweed plants I have allowed to spread into the lawn. Local ash and maple trees are plagued by invasive bug-carrier diseases that used to be prevented by hard freezes that killed the beetles and moths and the eggs they laid before they could hatch out in the spring. And other major plants and animals are also struggling with increased heat in summer and the lack of adequate cold in winter. Bees of all kinds, and in fact the majority of all insects, are disappearing, along with songbirds that feed on them, the songbirds that feed on them. Let me just interject right now. There used to be a very large flock of birds. There's 2 trees close to my house that would house large populations of birds almost year round, but especially in the summer, spring, summer, fall. They used to be quite loud. They used to make, great, big, beautiful bird noises every day, every morning especially. Do you guys hear any birds right now? I mean, you would generally hear them throughout the day. And if you go back to my older shows, you would hear the birds. They were very loud. There were a lot of birds a few years ago. In the last 2 years, those birds are gone. There are no birds. Very, very few birds. I might hear a chirp once in a long while, but those birds are gone. Why is that? It's just not, something has shifted, and they no longer choose to live here. The trees are still here. I think it's the insects that are gone. We still have other birds. There's crows. We have a lot of crows. We have a lot of wild parrots. There's a wild parrot thing going on in California. And I do see some other birds here and there. But we just don't have the colony. We used to have just massive colonies of birds that used to live in the trees by my house, and they just aren't there anymore. All right. Let's keep going. I really didn't intend to read this article at all, but it's a good article, so I'm just going to continue. Because he's laying it out. He's giving you the Alan Savory. Let's go out and observe nature. Let's go out and observe the world and get our data. And we're not talking about models here. We're talking about someone's own personal experience with how the weather has changed. And many people who watch this channel and many people all over the world are going, something is off. Something's very different. Uh, Anyways, songbirds are missing. Well, some of that is attributable to herbicides, insecticides, and development. A lot of it has to do with climate stress. Across the country, commercial crops are failing because of heavier rains, alternating with worsening droughts and hotter summers. And remember, all these crises are vastly worse in the poorest parts of the world, where hundreds of millions or even billions are doomed to die of thirst or hunger if they don't migrate to livable climate zones. A major challenge as populist and even fascist governments rise over the issue of immigration. That brings up the issue of societal collapse, which climate Pollyannas tend to dismiss as being unlikely or just an alarmist paranoid fantasy, or maybe they really don't want to entertain the idea because it's a scary idea. I get it. I don't like to entertain that idea myself. And yet, look at the chaos we are seeing around the globe already. It's well known that the bloody conflict in Syria was rooted in climate change in that country, increasingly dry and inhospitable country. Israel's intransigence about resolving the Palestinian issue, which has poisoned politics in much of the Middle East for years, has much to do with acquiring access to more fresh water and arable Arab land. Even the Ukraine war, which threatens the world with a nuclear holocaust, has its environmental aspect. Ukraine is a literal breadbasket for Europe and the world, and with much of Russia's grain regions further east suffering increasing drought, Moscow probably would like to have control of a wheat-growing region with more reliable rainfall. Closer to home, the fratricidal political feuding that was difficult to read. Fratricidal political feuding in the U.S., which is pitting struggling farm states against bicoastal, more commercial and industrial regions, not as threatened by drought, and between low-lying states in the southeast facing ever more powerful climate-driven storms and less threatened northeastern states whose communities sit at higher elevations and can view the sea level rise and increased flooding as a more distant threat, show how rapidly even a once fairly homogeneous polity in society can fragment and fall apart. When the world is only 2 or more degrees Celsius or 4 degrees Fahrenheit warmer in a few more decades, okay, so at least he's being realistic about that. A few more decades. We have a few more decades, including this decade that we're already 2 years into. And the seas have risen by a few feet or more, with millions instead of tens of thousands of desperate immigrants pressing north to escape even worse disasters. It's not hard to imagine bloody chaos in the U.S. or perhaps Canada building its own wall to keep desperate U.S. refugees at bay. And remember, too, what these climate Pollyannas are not mentioning is that even if they turn out to be right, and the Earth's average temperature by 2100 has only risen by 2 degrees Celsius, instead of the 3 or 4 degrees that scientists were worried about by then, the heating will not stop in 2100. It will continue for decades and centuries as the various tipping points along the way lead to vicious cycles of causality, like the release of prehistoric long-buried methane clathrates and the loss of the reflective ice at the North Pole, on Greenland, and on vast swaths of the Antarctic continent and its ice shelves, all of which will propel the process of global heating forward, whatever government policymakers do. You cannot prettify or downplay this crisis. Oh, that was good. That was Dave Lindorf. And let me take back what I said earlier. And I think he was just repeating what the party line is about 2 degrees by 2100. I don't think he was actually putting that out there as a reality. Obviously, by the end of that article, he suggested that he doesn't believe that is a reality. So that's good. Boiled rope lamppost says $25 for a small alfalfa bale here in Northern California. What are they usually? I don't know how to contrast that. It sounds like a lot of money. They used to be what, $10? I'm guessing. Obsolete Optics says it'll be $296 next year. Oh, Andre says 67 tipping points have already been reached. All right. All right. Wow. All I can say is wow. Let's see. I'm going to check my coffees. I get any coffees today? Not yet. Good way to support the channel is buymeacoffee.com/blackbearnews. Or tipping on Rockfin is also super cool. Or you can subscribe to me on Rockfin. That's also super cool. I wanna kind of switch gears, but before I do that, I want to play. I had a lot more climate stuff to cover, but I'm going to switch gears and probably jump off YouTube in a second. I'll save the other stuff for tomorrow. I don't know what this is about. Oh, I do know what this is about. Sorry. This is another one of those dumb. Sorry, but it is dumb. It's dumb. It is a very low level of thought went into this. It's funny when people go, tweet things out of somebody's, some professor squirrel butt on the BBC or something saying, "Oh, climate change is totally false." And they're like, "Yeah, see, he's telling the truth. The truth got through." And you're like, no, they knew what he was going to say, and they brought him on purpose to say those things. Okay, so yeah, no. It wasn't the gotcha that you thought it was, but a whole lot of people are like, yeah. And it's just as dumb as the blue side, when they put out some trope or some kind of, that's what all the, the fascists and the QAnoners are doing. Everybody goes, yeah, and people just jump on the flag waving bandwagon, and it's actually kind of low, like a low IQ thing to do. But sorry if I hurt your feelings there, but it's true. Anyways, townhall.com tweeted this: Biden saying, "I know you all know there's no climate problem," as if, oh, he's telling the truth. Oh my God. Just the level of dumbness of this, and everybody's, all the commenters are like, yeah, oh, he said it, the quiet part out loud, and he's admitting the thing. Okay, no, he is joking. He's being sarcastic. And you can tell he's being sarcastic if you just listen to the clip and watch it and use your brain when you're listening to it. But apparently nobody wants to do that because they want to confirm their bias. And anyways, whatever. This kind of stuff is ridiculous and dumb. And I'm just trying to point out, please don't be ridiculous and dumb and do stuff like this. But he says, "I know you all know there's no climate problem." He's making a joke. You can hear that because people are laughing. And you can also hear that because he prefaces saying this by saying, "Hey, we're tackling climate." I'm not a Joe Biden supporter at all. I really don't like the person, and I don't like him on so many levels. I really dislike Joe Biden. But I have to say, he's making a joke, and is actually, it was taken from the audience as a joke, and he's not saying there's no climate problem. He's joking because he says, we're doing all these things to tackle the climate issue, but you all know that's a joke, right? He's making fun of he's making fun of climate deniers on some level, right? But climate deniers are so fucking stupid that they're actually taking this as him telling the truth about climate change and not making a joke because you're all so fucking stupid. Sorry if I'm cussing, but I mean, you guys got to get it together. You really got to get it together when you put the stuff like this out there, thinking that you're owning somebody and not your own stupidity. Good God, it's just embarrassing. Anyways, whatever.
In addition, we're making the biggest investment ever to deal with the climate I know you all know there's no climate problem. I know you know that. So I spent a lot of time in Arizona, New Mexico, California, all through, flew up and down the state with your governor and those wildfires. I know that just happened.
My God, he's joking. He's joking. He's joking. But you know, these it's just, you know, whatever. I know I'm being really harsh on these people, but I know I'm being harsh, and I apologize if I'm wrinkling any feathers. But I mean, you got to do better. You really got to do better. You know, don't make yourself look too dumb out there. Okay. We got to try a little harder. All right, so we're gonna switch gears, and I'm gonna jump off of YouTube. Thank you, YouTubers. You can watch the rest of the show on rockfin.com. Yeah, Andrea says the real joke is that we are tackling the climate crisis, right? That's the part that's actually the oh, are we? You sure about that? You're good. Yes, exactly. Andre, exactly. But when oh God, when you put out something and you're missing the entire context of in which it is said, and you're taking it as like, there he goes, telling the truth about climate change. Okay, you guys didn't even get it. Okay. Put on your dunce cap and take a seat. That's okay. Sometimes I can be duncy too. That's fine. Just do better. Do better. All right, YouTubers, you can continue to watch the show on Rockfin and Colin. And I will see you all tomorrow at noon.